Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining for this update on the NuHart site. So we are calling this meeting because Madison Realty has let us know that they will soon be moving on to the Superfund portion of the site, moving the tent there and beginning the excavation. So, this is something that we've all been advocating for a long time for the cleanup, but of course there are community concerns. So very important to hold a meeting to be able to answer questions. I want to encourage people to join the Facebook group that is going on where neighbors can share concerns, or if someone has asked a question and gotten an answer, that's been a good way of sharing information. So that's called NuHart Neighbors, and I can send a link out after this meeting. But first, want to acknowledge and give a chance for all of our elected officials who are here to say a little something. We're lucky to have so many that are interested and active and involved in this cleanup process. So just want to give people a chance. So I know I've seen Senator Gonzalez on here. If you would like to kick off and say anything.
Sure. Can everyone hear, see me?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I just wanted to say thank you for having us. Just keeping it really brief. Since the last time we all met in this group, my office, myself, and my community affairs director, Marissa Mabridge, who was on this call, had a chance to visit the site, and we, did a tour because we wanted to, see firsthand how things are progressing. We talked through the plan. So, definitely appreciate the folks who gave us a tour, but really, it highlighted the scale of the project. Being there in person, being on the site, there is a lot of work that has been done already, which is good. Still a lot of work left to do. So I'm really excited to be here and really hear from all of you how, as the community members who are directly impacted by this, how you feel the project is going. I can say from our office's perspective, we have not gotten an uptick in complaints and over the last month or so, or a couple of months since we've met here, which is a good sign. So I appreciate the cooperation that's happened and responsiveness from the city as well in tracking air quality, tracking complaints, and working to ensure that we're keeping a good and reasonable schedule. But again, if that hasn't been the experience of folks, we are here, reach out to us, reach out to the folks who are on this call, and excited to hear that perspective to see if there's anything we can do between now and the next time we meet. So with that, I want to hear from folks on this call, so I will leave it at that. But again, thank you for having us on this call today.
Great, thank you so much. I know I also saw Assemblymember Gallagher on. If you are there and want to say something, I know you've been very involved in this.
Sure, I'll just be even quicker than Senator Gonzalez. I'm just looking forward to hearing the updates and seeing how everyone's been experiencing this, and looking forward to working out a way to move forward. Great, thanks.
Great. And I know we are also expecting Councilmember Restler. I'm not seeing his name, but awesome. Great. There you are. I just missed you.
That's cool. It's great to be with you all. I really want to thank DEC for their extensive engagement. We're really fortunate in Greenpoint to have the leadership of the Department of Environmental Conservation so actively engaged at this site. I think we all know that the NuHart site has been a serious problem for a long time. And I'm appreciative that this developer, Madison, under the oversight of DEC, is finally getting the site cleaned up and finally making it safer for our community. And so I just want to thank everybody for continuing to join these conversations, to get the updates so that we can take smart feedback and good suggestions and work together to make sure that this project goes as smoothly as it can. If there's anything that we can do to be helpful, please let us know. My colleague Emily's on here from our office, and we're eager to help in any way that we can. So I just want to thank North Brooklyn neighbors, and of course, Kristen and Emily and our Congresswoman and DC and Madison for partnering with us on this to make sure we're getting the word out and folks understand the changes that are coming to the Superfund portion of the site, so that things can happen as safely as possible and that we can provide, helpful, constructive community oversight along the way. So thanks a lot, Leah.
Great. Thank you so much. And I know we have staff from Congresswoman Velázquez's office. I'm not sure if she's on. Just want to give you all a chance to say something.
Sure. I go by he.
Oh, I wasn't sure if the Congresswoman, sorry. I was joining.
Yes, well, I'm afraid she can't make it. She's gardening behind me in a
Yes, of course.
And my baby's going as well. While I'm feeding. But the Congresswoman represented Greenpoint more than a decade ago, and we're back. So we're kind of getting our feet wet with these local issues here in the area. And I just wanted to thank everyone and our partners for putting this together. Brownfield sites are no stranger to my baby or my boss. And we're looking forward to the most thorough cleanup possible that's protective of health and the environment in the area, not just on the site itself, because I understand there's some plume underneath there that may be going under streets, and we really want to address that as well. So thanks.
Great. Thank you so much. Glad to have you here. Glad to have you back. Great. So we are going to have a presentation by Madison Realty Capital on their plans, and then we will have a Q&A, and we have DEC, DOH, OER, and so we have a lot of different people with a lot of expertise to help answer questions. But for now, let's go ahead and see that presentation. Kick it over to you.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thank you, Lael. Thank you to North Brooklyn neighbors. Thank you for organizing this and hosting. Thank you to DEC, DOH, OER, and to all the electeds that are here tonight and continue to be involved in this important community cleanup. We're excited to discuss the progress to date, excited to show you the next step of the cleanup and talk through any concerns or questions that you all may have. So the first couple slides may look familiar. Where do we go? Can everyone see? All right, perfect. Yes. So the new address is 65 DuPont, 75 DuPont Street. Again, you'll see the development site highlighted in a light orange, orienting yourself. On the south side of the site is DuPont. On the west side is Franklin, and on the north side is Clay. Here's a site plan outlined in green. On the right-hand portion of the screen is the brownfield site. That portion of the site has more or less been fully excavated, and we've obtained clean endpoint samples across that site. And that's why we are now moving the tent to the Superfund site, to phase 2. And outlined in blue is 65 DuPont and the Superfund portion of the site. As a quick reminder, here's an aerial bird's eye view and rendering of the future development. We're looking at 473 residential rental units. There'll be parking, which will be accessed off of Clay, and ground floor retail, which will be on the corner of Clay Street and DuPont. This project's being developed under 2 programs: voluntary inclusionary housing and affordable New York. The building will have, as you see in the rendering, some ground floor amenities and rooftop amenities, amongst some others for residents. Here are 2 photos taken over the last couple days. So if you look on the left-hand side, to orient everyone, where you see the steel structure, this is the tent after the tarp has been removed. But this basically is phase 1 up in the top right-hand corner of the brownfield portion. So once all the odors and soil were removed there and we achieved the cleanup, we got the okay and we started relocating the tent to phase 2, which is on the top right, you'll see my mouse of the Superfund site. And then the picture on the right-hand side of this slide is if I'm standing basically on DuPont on the southeast corner, hovering over that square, looking west. So you'll see the open air excavation portion of the site, and the north portion of the brownfield is the remnants of the tent structure that's being relocated to the Superfund. You could actually see in this right-hand photo in the top left corner, a portion of the tent being erected for the first phase of the Superfund cleanup. Here's a quick overview of the work that's been completed and what's upcoming. As we discussed, phase 1, that tent is complete. We actually had the first mat slab pour of the foundation on the open air excavation, which was last week. We're intending for the foundation to be complete on phase 1 around Labor Day, and we'll hopefully top out that structure by the end of the year. NuHart West, which is the Superfund phase 2, tent relocations in progress, moving a little bit slower than we anticipated due to weather the last couple of days. But the hope is we'll start excavation under that tent on the Superfund in the next couple of weeks. In phase 2 location will be complete around Labor Day as well, and moving that tent to phase 3 by September. And hopefully the tent is off the site by the end of the year. Just quickly, we have 3 renderings you previously saw that will show you the phasing, the tent phasing. So this was the phase that was just completed. This is the phase in the location where the tent is being moved to, which is on the Superfund site. And then this is the last location for the tent. These green rectangle boxes, as a reminder, are the air handler units, which are required for the cleanup. And big picture, that's really all we got to talk about the phasing, what's been completed to date, and what the plan is over the next 6 months. Again, here's our slide, obvious commitment to the community, working with, North Brooklyn neighbors, the electeds, and our neighbors. I know we have our weekly newsletter. Hopefully everyone finds those helpful. We try and be as informative as possible, let you know when there's going to be longer working hours due to concrete operations, deliveries, times you could expect noise. I will say that there will be some weekend work while we complete the tent. But once that tent is erected, weekend work will be limited until the next time we need to relocate the tent. Ashley at Capolino has been a great resource and team member. She's sitting beside me, although you can't see. But, we try and respond to the concerns we get from, the community as quickly as possible. We also update the air monitoring reports daily and the daily field reports. So you guys can access those through the QR code today if you want, or click this link, but those are also always accessible.
Yeah. It's hot.
Okay. So Leah, I guess you want to open to questions?
Yeah, so great to have people raise their hand, and we'll go in that order. If you don't want to ask, you can put it in the meeting chat or go ahead and ask me directly, but I see that we have a queue started already. So go ahead, Steve Chesler, and ask your question.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Lael. And thank you, Madison, DEC, and everyone for this presentation tonight. Question about this next phase of remediation. If I understand correctly, they'll be addressing both, I guess, the TCE plume and the phthalates plume. I guess they kind of overlap in this section. So if you could just talk generally about, or not generally, about how you're approaching and handling those two substances in terms of remediation.
Okay, Steve, James Bellew from Haley Aldrich, our environmental consultant, is sitting next to me, so I'm gonna let him answer this question.
How you doing? I'm James. So the phthalate and heckle oil plume is being handled on site through excavation. That work will be done under the tent. And basically the material will be loaded into trucks with tight fitting covers and transported and disposed of at a receiving facility. There'll be dewatering going on the site, which will be evacuating liquids to facilitate the excavation. That'll be collected in a treatment system on the site and basically discharged as per the approved permits for the site. The TCE plume on the site, when we are at development depth, there'll be a mixing operation very similar to the plume portion on NuHart East, where we'll be mixing 0 valent iron into the subgrade soils to treat any of the residual TCE. For the offsite portion of the site OU2, there'll be LNAPL recovery of the phthalates and the heckle oil plume through manual recovery with balers and spill buddies and other various pumps. They'll be placed into holding cells on the site to be eventually transported and disposed of to approved facilities. The chlorinated solvent plume that extends offsite in OU2 will be handled through 0 valent iron injections. So very similar to those drill rigs you've seen on the site. We'll be mobilizing that and then under pressure injecting 0 valent iron into the groundwater. And then also we'll be putting in a vapor extraction system that will be designed to extract the soil vapor impacted with the chlorinated solvents and running it through a carbon treatment offsite. And this will be all happening concurrently to the on-site OU1 excavation work.
Thanks. Do you just have a rough estimation of how much of these three, major substances can actually be, either pumped out of the groundwater and extracted from, in terms of soil excavation? And then how much, I guess, will be left to these kind of bioremediation type of methods?
So the on-site plume is handled through the actual excavation work. So the LNAPL is trapped within the pore spaces of soil. So that will be recovered manually with excavators and put into trucks. As per the decision document, its gross contamination will be removed. As for the offsite, the 0 valent iron is a long-term remedy that basically uses reductive dechlorination over time. So, and we'll be having a site management plan post-injection that will be monitoring the efficacy of the remedy. And there is carve-outs that if we needed to add amendments down the line, based on the response to the 0 valent iron, we would.
Okay. And just quickly, to phase 3, is there a agreed on design, remedy design for that? I know that had to be finalized, I guess, at a couple updates back.
Yes. Yeah, so you want me to answer or you go, Jane?
Yeah, no, go ahead. We did approve the design, but the remedial design has been approved, but James can talk about what's in it.
Yeah, so from a remedial design standpoint, the phase 2 and phase 3 just reference the tent location. All of NuHart West's excavation will be under a tent. It just split into 2 moves.
And the same methodology in terms of how you're removing contamination and treating contamination?
That is correct.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Up next is Daphna. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm just leaving my camera off. I'm overseas. It's the middle of the night. I just have a couple of questions. Steve, thanks. I'm glad that he asked all the questions about the actual remediation. I am mostly concerned about those of us on DuPont living through this very up close. So I just wanted to say that I do appreciate, I'm speaking directly to Jason now when I have an issue, but I wanted to just ask a couple of things. I do not understand the air quality monitoring stuff when I read it. I can't tell if it's good or bad. Is there any way we can get like a simplified version of this? The reason I ask is I have had breathing problems for the last several months, and I'm trying to just make sure that it has nothing to do with what's going on. That's number one. The second one is about noise. High-pitched whine that we're hearing, then I understand is the air units. Is that right?
Daphne, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. And Jason's been great. I just
Jason,
need to.
Jason's sitting at the table too. Just the camera's
Hi.
wide enough.
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel like now I know who's doing this, so that helps a lot. But there are still some concerns, like I don't understand the air quality monitoring, kind of goes in one ear, out the other.
Yeah. I mean,
When,
so
when we get the, just let me interject for just 1 second. This is
Sure.
Jane. Hi, Daphne.
Hi,
When we get the daily reports, when you guys submit the daily reports to us, there's two things that are in there. One is, this is specific to the air monitoring. I thought that there was something in there that says, you know, there either were or were not any exceedances of the health department, you know, the set guidelines, right? And then there's sort of the raw data, Daphne. You know, we rely on, you know, and the DOH project manager reviews those on a daily basis. You know, but there's a threshold, and either they either exceed the threshold or they don't exceed the threshold for volatile organic compounds or for particulates. And so, you know, this is one of the concerns we had when we were talking about putting the raw data out for the public. It's gibberish, right? It looks like gibberish to you.
I don't understand
what you're looking at, right? So we wanted to make sure that there was at least, you know, just a line in their daily report that says there was an exceedance and this is what we did about it, or there was no exceedances. And that's what we put in the daily reports. And I don't know if you're only
Does that
looking at the
mean-
raw
yeah.
data.
I'm looking periodically because it's also a
Okay.
lot of information. So
Yeah,
if
yes.
I would love to be just told, because I had a cough from March until May. And my doctor would like to know if it's just from that. I'm sorry to bring something that personal into this, but I'm having health issues. I haven't slept well in 4 months or 5 months since this started. I'm removing my bedroom to try and comfort that, but I see everything. I don't need your pictures. Sorry, I can see that out my window. So, you know, I'm not trying to complain. I'm just trying to get more information. And so it's about the noise, you know, is this high pitched whine. I'm assuming it's going to be louder now because it's closer to me. But I don't know where the units are going to be. Are they like to the left or the right of the tent or behind it? Can that be, yeah, do you have an idea?
yeah, so I think what you're referring to is the dewatering pumps that are running.
Yeah, I'm just hearing like all day long
Right,
and
it's like a
all
little,
night long.
it's like a little motor that's going around.
Yeah.
Let's look at the location. I'll see what the noise is and if we need to do some sort of.
Yeah, because there
enclosure
is,
to
I
minimize
actually,
that.
yeah, I can actually talk to you about that. Okay, because there are things you can do. And then the last thing is about the vibrations. Are there going to be any more? I think Jason said no.
No,
Great. Okay, good. So that part's over.
yeah, I mean, listen, the only noise you're gonna probably hear is the slab now.
No, my whole, yeah, the thing is, you know, that my whole house was shaking and I started measuring the vibrations.
No,
But
I
again,
understand.
I don't know what those numbers mean. I just knew that my house was shaking, like I was afraid some,
So
you know, so we
that's-
had some cracks. Jason came and looked at them. We put the monitoring in.
Oh, correct. I'm just saying in terms of noise, and it may feel like little vibrations when they chip away the concrete slab. Once they move the tent, that's
Mm-hmm.
gonna be noisy and you may feel a little vibration, but for the
But not
most
like
part,
before. Yeah.
no, definitely not.
You're not
like-
doing any more pile driving, right?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah,
correct.
that was hard.
But just want to set expectations that that's allowed, you know, it's not like moving
Okay.
soil, which is much quieter.
Okay, so yeah, Jane, it would be great if there's any way that we can get like, you know, I like reading documents like this, but I don't understand what I'm reading. So,
Right.
and since I am having a health problem, I'm very concerned to know. And I do run an air, because of COVID, we had air purifier in my bedroom. I don't know if that does anything for me.
So I can, Daphne, maybe the easiest thing to do would be, I mean, the health department looks at these, the daily reports. We also get a monthly report that sort of summarizes everything, but I'm not aware that we've had any exceedances of any of the guidance values for the VOCs or dust. James, can you speak to that?
So in the beginning, when we first started, there were some dust exceedances because it was very
Okay.
windy. And then that's when we
Right.
mobilized
Yep.
the water truck. And
Okay.
then since the water truck has been mobilized, the Omni guys have done a really good job out there of keeping the site water down.
Okay.
There has not been any exceedances since.
And what was the date, give or take, of when we had those issues with the dust?
March, April, yeah.
All right, so that's around the time I mean, because I literally had a cough for 2.5 months and I was supposed to go get an x-ray and it was like, can't just be looked at as if it has nothing to do with this. So, okay, so just any information I can get would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Daphna. So next up is Darren, and after that, there's a question in the chat, but anyone else who's interested, please raise your hand. Go ahead, Darren.
Hey, everybody. Thanks, everybody, for staying late, working late, and having this meeting. So I got an issue and a request. I'll start with the issue. The issue is I just took a walk up on between Clay wrapping around Franklin on the path there, on the walking path, there's mud. So I guess to Jane, question. So I don't, there's two parts to that. One is, how's mud getting out of the site? You may not be able to answer that. And two, what is the risk level that mud has phthalates in it?
All right, so let's start with where exactly are you talking about, Darren?
So on Clay, at the corner of Clay and Franklin, so it wraps around and then you start walking towards DuPont. Does that make sense? So closer to, yeah.
So across from the park, you mean?
Yeah, but across, yeah, that corner there across from the park, but there's two corners. That doesn't really help. Closer to Greenpoint Landing and the waterfront.
And you're seeing mud out in the street? Is it
on the along the walking path there? So there's the orange and white there. I guess they're orange barriers.
Okay.
So somehow the mud's getting out. I know it rained. I know maybe maybe it's possible that it got out that way, but it's more concerned that there's mud on the street and what's in that mud. So that's what I'm asking.
So yeah, that's a good question. I'm asking James, what are we? The entrance is halfway then up Clay Street, right?
Yeah, so Jane, I mean, Darren, hi, good to see you again. We were just having a little powwow. Obviously, there's been a lot of rain recently and there's mud on the streets. We'll look into it, but all our entrances and exits of the site don't even go around Franklin. So everything basically comes into DuPont and out Clay. And we know that we have after the last couple of meetings and trial and error through all the trucks, a robust tire wash program with the contractors, and know that they really don't leave site if there's anything on that truck. And we have sort of protocol from the subcontractor, construction manager up to Haley Aldridge to make sure, because we know the sensitivity and concern there. So I think, our general super is sitting here, so we're going to look at that exact condition tomorrow. But in terms of trucks in and trucks out, we really have not been on Franklin. I know that 19 other sites in the area are moving. Greenpoint, there's a lot of trucks around. So we should just look together. If we need to clean it up or sweep or mop or whatever, we're more than happy to. And if there was a specific instance of dirt leaving the site, that's an issue. But I
agree. I think it's pushed out from the rain. It's on the walking path, so it's not anywhere a truck wheel could ever gotten to. So I don't think this is coming from a truck wheel. So I don't think that was,
Is it potentially coming underneath the fence, under the construction fence?
Something like that. So I don't.
Okay, so James, where is the drilling going on?
Silt sock.
Yeah, we have silt socks all around the fence. Our drilling is done. We finished last week, and everything is in drums or on the site. So it wouldn't be from us, to be
All right,
honest.
well,
And-
let's get eyes on this first thing in the morning and see what Darren's talking about. And if it's not coming from your site, then, you know, it may be coming from another construction site. But I think he raises a good question. What is
I
it and where
agree.
is it coming from?
Correct. And regardless, we'll have Jason, we'll
Okay.
look at it with the team and address it.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for, offering to clean up really quickly. That's the best we can do. I mean, just want to fix this. That's all I'm asking for. The second is the request. So the request is, I don't know if all the construction in this area for the last 10 years, I've lived here for 24 years. But in the last 10, 11 years, we've had nonstop construction here. And I think I was asking Emily about this is that, it's 6-7 days a week of construction, right? Even tonight, there's a cement truck wandering by my house at 6:55, right? And I walked by it and that's where I saw the mud. And I saw that, Greenpoint Landing's still doing their work at 7 o'clock at night. And, this has been going on forever. And if you ever lived through this, it's pretty horrible. And it ebbs and flows. There's different parts of the construction, pile driving being the worst part of it, of course. But my request is this, that the elected officials get together and we formulate a plan. One, I know that there's urgency to get this project done because of tax abatements, and I want to end that rush. I don't think that rush is a good idea with this site. I think overall, not a good way to go with this. So let's get the fire turned off from these guys. Second, let's do that with the agreement that we're not going to do after hours on this site. So we're going to make it easy for them to get their job done, and and they're going to be able to work the 5 days a week, normal time, but we're not going to do after hours and we're not going to do weekends. Now, we could start the conversation here. I know this is not an easy conversation to have, and it's a big conversation to have. So I don't know. I just want to see if the electeds are tuned in with this idea. Because, 10 years ago, there's only 150 of us here. Now there's, a couple thousand of us that have to endure this endless work. So anybody, starting with maybe Lincoln, do you want to start? You're still here.
I know this was something that was talked about at previous meetings, have construction kind of get-togethers with all the different developers in the area. I remember Emily Gallagher saying something about that. I want to give any elected a chance to weigh in because I know this has been brought up previously to see if there's been any progress on that idea.
Hey folks, I'm happy to talk more about this idea. I do want to flag, I see Councilmember Restler is hopping on right now. But I know his office has been engaged in actually mapping of noise complaints and environmental concerns in this area, so that we can get a better sense of like a higher level view. Like you're saying, there's so many different construction sites. And initially you mentioned there was like 150 folks, and now there are more folks who are affected. So I know that his office is engaged, and we're also tuned in because we're looking to do the same of a higher level view to really identify where the issue is and see how we can coordinate across projects. And I don't want to speak for him. I do see him on, but I know that there's also like filming that's part of this area that's also like highly intense. So there are also not only just construction but other disturbances, and we're trying to work it out. But I do see that he hopped on, so I can turn it to him if he has more information.
Yeah, thanks, Kristen. No, we've put together a list of the developers in the community and have been reached out, I think, just about to each of the folks who have active construction sites in the district, and are eager to convene folks on a recurring basis to provide a forum for people to provide regular feedback. So, we're committed to getting that off the ground. I'm sorry it's been a little slow, but we will circle back with you in we'll circle back with this group in the next couple weeks with an update, and we'll get that first meeting scheduled in the next month or two. But we're happy to help take the lead with Emily and Kristen and the Congresswoman's office to make sure that that gets up and running very quickly. So we appreciate the suggestion. I think it's helpful with all the various construction sites that we have. It's important for there to be better coordination, and it's important for there to be consistent DOB oversight across the board. I know there used to be a quarterly meeting that was convened a few years ago that I think was helpful. So we'll look to replicate that process and try and get it back up and running as quickly as possible.
But my last statement is this: the most important thing that we can do is extend their 421A deadline. If their deadline's extended, then the fires, then they don't have this fire. And I just want to know if I want to hear that the electeds are committed to pushing out their deadline. That's what I'm asking.
Hi, this is Assemblymember Gallagher. We spent the better part of the year fighting with the governor about housing stuff and trying to get something that would work for everyone, and it did not go anywhere. So all of the folks on this call have made it clear to our speakers that we are open to coming back at any time for a housing package, but I don't think that the rest of the state is equally motivated, unfortunately. So, I'm keeping pushing on that stuff, but it's really been a terrible, terrible situation. So that's where we are with that.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
Nope, go ahead.
And to answer that question, no, unfortunately, we could not just pass it for one project. There are a list of projects that are asking for an extension across the city, and those, of course, are part of or have been part of the conversation, but including this one, right? But it's not as if like we're able to go back in session to pass the extension for this one specific project. And to add, and echo what Assemblymember Gallagher is saying, we've spent better part of this year, but also years organizing around tenant protections. And so just for more context here too, we honestly, and as someone who represents 3 boroughs, all of which have undergone significant development, overall our district is not, excited about more tax breaks for luxury developments, right? Because we need truly deeply affordable housing. But myself and Emily and so many of the electeds who've been fighting for tenant protections were willing to come to the table and negotiate and say yes to having an extension if we also saw tenant protections to keep us as, in our homes. In this district, we see Greenpointers who have been here for generations getting pushed out, our elderly neighbors not able to afford a lot of these new units. And so it's changing the landscape of all of our communities. But we were willing to come to the table. Who didn't come to the table was the governor, and specifically the Real Estate Board of New York, who refused to take a 421A extension that also included a package that had tenant protections in it as well. So it is not on our end. We negotiated, we were willing to compromise, but it was the Real Estate Board of New York, as well as the governor's office, that were unwilling to compromise on those.
Yeah, but you're conflating. I don't think we should conflate the issue. This site is a state Superfund site. All these other sites are not, okay? There's a lot of people that live around here. There's a playground across the street. You got to understand, this is serious. And if these guys are rushing, there's a better chance they're going to mess up. So why don't we let this one go? Put away your tenants protections for this one thing. And let's get this thing out. Let them extend their deadline. They're going to get the 421A if they rush. So they're going to rush. So let's undo that, and let's just end the after hours work. Anyway, I've said my piece.
Yeah,
Darren, if only it were that simple. I'm sorry. I don't really feel I feel a little condescended to with the way that you're talking. We understand what's going on, and it's not that simple. We can't just say, oh, the entire state pass a 421A exemption for one project in our neighborhood without considering other projects that have other issues. And we did have a list, as Kristen said, and this project was on the list and it got shot down. So we are trying and we are continuing to try, and we understand. I've been working on this project for like 10 years. I understand that it's serious and I want it done properly. And we've talked about that before. So that's all I'll say. Thanks.
I just want to circle back to the mud issue. I just want to hear that, since we're all kind of aware of it now, that we will kind of get notified of the answer so that we can share it. Just want to pose that to Madison Realty, DEC, just so we can.
No problem.
Great.
James and Ashley will coordinate a response, to North Brooklyn neighbors and to DEC.
Great. And one other thing is people are asking about the QR code. So would you be able to share the presentation and that you gave today so we can send that out as well?
Yes, no problem.
Great. One other question in the chat, and then I'm going to move on. Actually, I see Zachary, who put in the question, is raising his hand. So I will go ahead and do the order. So Steve Chester, you're up next, and then Heather, and then Zachary.
Thank you. I see Alan Rebido is on the call. Is he the technical advisor for North Brooklyn Neighbors on this project?
Yes, he is.
If he would be willing to, hey, Alan, just lend your thoughts about the Superfund remedy that was approved. I understand that you had input on that modifications, but yeah, that would be great.
Sure. Is there a particular aspect of it that you had questions about?
No, just generally, I guess you feel good about it, you feel confident about it, you have concerns about it in general.
Sure. So the thing that drew my attention was the change from the original record of decision, which was going to use a technology called air sparging that was going to continue on for a period of time. And then that was later on in the amendment process changed to the injection of the zero valent iron, which is more, I think, an initial activity that's done during the excavation that is intended to kind of provide a change in the chemistry that would then continue on after the excavation is completed. So I thought the air sparging was a bad idea, and I was very pleased that everyone seemed to be on board with changing that to the current remedy, which involves the combination of excavation and then injection of the zero valent iron, or the deep mixing of that. One of the problems with TCE contamination is it's dense, so it sinks and it can hide in the deeper soil, which raises some uncertainty about whether the excavation is completely successful. And that's a very difficult thing to determine at the time. So the leaving behind of the zero valent iron is a really good idea, in my opinion, because it leaves behind some reactive material that will remain in place and continue some chemical interactions with any TCE that might be left. So I was supportive of that. I had some questions about the implementation of that, because it's not a particularly common approach. And so how you place the zero valent iron and how you monitor it afterwards, there were all some kind of just operational questions about that. I was satisfied with how those were addressed as a reviewer of the revision to the design. There's some uncertainty that will remain because they'll be monitoring after the excavation is complete. And there's always a possibility that there might be some TCE that persists. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the name, but the gentleman from the consulting firm who addressed that, I think, gave a good answer to that, which is that there are other things that can be done down the road, and if there is any residual TCE that appears. So I think it's a good technical approach. I think it fits what's going on at the site. I think it will be worth scrutinizing the plan that gets developed, and Jane can tell us what that plan is called, but there's a site, I think a site management plan. And so that the details of that will matter and be important. But so far, I think this switch from the historical proposal to this current remedy, I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it's kind of state of the practice. And given all the constraints of the site and the fact that the contamination is sitting so close to the property line and the full vertical extent is not 100% certain, I think this is a good plan. So yeah, so thumbs up, subject to a thorough implementation and a careful monitoring after the excavation is completed.
Great, thank you.
Thanks for that question, Steve. So for those of you who weren't aware, Alan is a technical advisor that North Brooklyn Neighbors has been able to hire due to a grant from the state. So he and a partner have been weighing in on some of the technical aspects and been going back and forth with the DEC on behalf of the community. So he is here to answer questions. So thanks, Steve, for taking advantage of that. And thanks, Alan, for weighing in. So I'm going to go ahead to Heather, and then Zachary is up, and then Laura.
Thanks, Leo. Hi, everybody. And thank you, Alan, for that as well, because it's also, and Jane too, it's good to hear from our technical experts to interpret what we are having a hard time interpreting, but what we lived through as direct neighbors on the site over here. So it's appreciated. You know, and I know thank you, everybody at Madison. You guys have been responsive. Thank you for remaining responsive to questions. And as we come up with things that we can reach out to you with issues. I do have a couple things speaking, Alan, and he also mentioned about monitoring for people that are having like health concerns or just questions about, wondering. Is there any kind of survey that's taken place of maybe residents or people directly in this kind of vicinity area? And maybe we could start there really quick. And I just have one follow-up question then. I don't know if anybody like from DOH or somebody wants to.
Hi, Heather, it's Jane. What you're asking if there's been a health assessment or a health survey of people in the vicinity? I'm sorry, I was trying to understand that.
Yeah, no, like just assessing like the health of the residents around. Is there like, like Daphne was saying, she has like a cough that's come up. She wants to make sure that it's not due to, some of the stuff that's going on, but just wondering if that's being tracked somewhere at the back end or, in the process of remediation as a total community remediation plan.
So this is Scarlett from New York State Department of Health. Basically, I don't think that there's really a health study or a health survey of the individual residents that are around the site. Really what we're focused on is making sure that when a remedy is selected, it's protective of public health. So it's not going to cause exposures. We're going to take care of or make sure that the contamination is taken care of so it doesn't cause problems. And that's why we have the community are monitoring, so that as they're doing it, we also want to monitor the situation and make sure that as they're removing any contamination, addressing any contamination, it doesn't leave the site to affect that surrounding community. So that's really more of our focus in that. I mean, Department of Health is pretty big, and there are a lot of different bureaus, a lot of different, people with a lot of different roles. And some of them are, looking at just disease and statistical significance of, is there some sort of a pattern? That's not really our bureau, but that is something Department of Health does, but I don't think that they're going in and surveying residents necessarily near a site. It's more like they look at hospital data and look to see at information if someone's diagnosed with something, if there's some sort of an unusual pattern of disease in an area. So, it's something that's looked at overall in the state by different parts of Department of Health, but I don't think anyone's really gone out to the residences or the surrounding community specifically around this site for that. We're really focused on making sure contamination doesn't affect the community itself in order to ensure that there wouldn't be health effects associated with being near the site.
Yeah, I know Greenpoint has a high cancer rate as well, particularly this community. But thank you, Scarlett. That's helpful to know.
Sorry, Heather, if I could ask one question along those lines. Scarlett, previously someone had mentioned the State Health Department's Bureau of Environmental Exposure Investigation.
Yes.
I'm just wondering if that might be something, a resource?
That is our bureau, actually. Our bureau is the Bureau of Environmental Exposure Investigation, and we're in charge of working with Department of Environmental Conservation on the investigation and remediation of sites, making sure remedies and investigations are protective of public health is our role. So that is the Bureau of Environmental Exposure Investigation. So we review all the reports, we review all the work plans to make sure we know where the contamination is, how people can come in contact with it or aren't coming in contact with it. And if we do find anything that would indicate, this is just overall in general for sites, then we would recommend measures to address that. So that's something we work hand in hand, right, with DEC, and in some cases EPA, if it's an EPA lead site, in the Bureau of Environmental Exposure Investigation. That's where our project manager, Steve Lawrence, is, and his supervisor, Angie, and me as the region chief as well.
So it sounds like you're looking at the community level, but for an individual level, there isn't necessarily a resource that you would recommend.
What do you mean the individual level? We look at it on a site by site basis as we're evaluating. As a site enters a DEC or EPA remedial program, we really evaluate. We want to know where the contamination is at the site, how someone could come in contact with it, what kind of remedy is proposed, are we on board, do we think that that's protective of public health, and then the proof is in the pudding. After the remediation is done, we want to see and make sure that that contamination has been addressed, and we're there as remediation is going on as well to, as Jane had mentioned, look at those camp monitoring reports daily and be involved in the whole process to make sure that the site is being cleaned up in a way that's protective of public health. But like I said, there are different parts of Department of Health that have different roles, and they don't necessarily focus on this on a site by site basis, but it's more, statewide, and they have registries, and they do look at cancer, which is different. There's a lot of different patterns of unusual disease that they look at in different parts of the health department, and cancer is one of them. And as far as a resource, I think if people have individual specific questions too, they could reach out to us and we can put them in contact with the right people, because it's complicated. We're big, and you reach out to me or our project manager and we can make sure whatever the question is that we get you to the right person. But in general, if you're experiencing a health effect, we do recommend you talk to your doctor, your primary care, who's going to really know the most about your situation, and make sure that if you are experiencing some sort of a health effect, that gets evaluated right away.
Okay, sorry, Heather, I know you said you had another question. I was just, go ahead.
Yeah, no, thank you. And thank you, Scarlett. That's really helpful. Just one quick, do you do it by zip code? Is anything done by zip code, like people in a particular zip code, or?
So when I started working with Department of Health Department in 2000 or so, I worked for actually the Cancer Surveillance Improvement Initiative. So this is outside of BEEI and whatnot, which is the Bureau of Environmental Exposure Investigation. We actually did look at information. We kind of collaborated with other parts of the health department where they had found some elevated patterns of cancer. But cancer is a lot of different things. you have breast cancer, you have colorectal cancer, a lot of different kinds, and not all of them have the same risk factors associated with them. So I don't want to get too far into the weeds here with all of this, but it is something that at that time they were looking at that on a zip code basis, but there's a lot of complications with that really needs a deeper dive, because there's latency periods. There could be a say an exposure to something that's going on. Someone works somewhere for a long period of time, and it may take some time for a health effect to develop. And that's called like a latency period. So someone may have worked in in an industry or something and been exposed to something for many, many years at high concentrations, just because they work directly with the product. And then 20 years later, maybe they've retired, maybe they've moved to a different community. And that may be the address that's on file when they're diagnosed with a health condition. So there's a lot of factors. It's actually a pretty difficult investigation that's done, and it requires a lot of additional really talking to people and whatnot for it. But
well, thank you for the for the
Yeah.
insight. I know it's a macro issue, as well. Yeah.
It is.
I do want to quickly, because I'm in the essence of time, I do want to, one of the other painfully aware things that some of us experience is the parking situation. And I know parking is not a given right in New York City. A lot of people move to the outer boroughs because they were working. They were working to get, commute their families, their, friends, equipment, other things. But I'm wondering, if we can can we compromise with DOT, who, I know you guys have to use the site. Is there any way to compromise to at least, hey, can I park my car in front of my house 7 p.m. to 7 in the morning? Is that something that could be considered as a alternative as we as neighbors are trying to deal with all of this? Just wanted to bring that up as an option. And Lincoln, and if if you can talk about, I heard you in the news recently about something about parking and, and something with tickets. I don't know what it is. Maybe you can tell us what you're proposing is as well, so I could be clear about it. Thanks.
So I think the first part of that question would be to Madison Realty about potentially hours of parking.
So I'm happy to jump in. Heather, completely understand where you're coming from, completely understand, obviously when you live in a neighborhood or community for a while and you rely on street parking and the street parking, all of a sudden disappears, that it can be quite disruptive. I think from the start of these meetings, and we're going on a year, we've tried to forecast, project, and make clear and set expectations for the community. First, it was, mobilization, then it was the cleanup, and then it was going to be what you're going to see on site. And in each of these presentations, we always, discuss that the parking lanes would be sort of lost or taken temporarily as a result of the development. I understand it is a large site, but we're dealing with a lot of unique circumstances. Most sites don't have these tents. Most sites don't have these air handlers. Most sites don't have the dewatering. So a large site all of a sudden becomes extremely constrained and tight. And especially when the eastern portion of the brownfield now is excavated 16 feet-ish, plus or minus below grade, it limits the area that the same amount of.
I do understand that. And it would be good to know what maybe some specific timelines, because when they were first putting up the signs, I asked, well, how long is this going to be for? And he said, oh, it could be through the construction of the building. I'm not sure if that's the timeline for this to be taken away or not, or if it's just for the remediation. Just so you know, it's parked, but by the crew that's working there. So people do park there. But during the day, it is the cars of the people working there. I understand they need to, get there themselves. But just so you know that
No, I
that's what's
understand, right?
happening with the parking that's
But-
being taken
correct.
away, but
It's work trucks, correct. It's people that are on the work site who need to drop off material, who need to get access.
it's, yeah, it's like the Honda, the little, yes, I understand. But I'm just, is there any
So-
way that a compromise could be made for evening
So
hours?
candidly, like, I feel like we are making a compromise, and like, we've had these permits for a while, and we've waited until the last possible moment to
Okay.
take that portion of the street. So for example, Franklin, right after July 4th, there's gonna be another bump out to take that to deal with the tent relocation and the air handlers. You know,
I mean, if you
we-
could give residents, like, maybe if you're gonna start like taking away more parking too, if you can post something before the day that it suddenly happens, that
100%.
would be
So
helpful as
this,
well.
listen, we can, in this Friday's update, I know, I guess it won't give you so much advance warning, but we will include it. And I could ask Ashley, maybe we could send out a note tomorrow of the anticipated additional closures and what they could see.
And I mean, do you have a timeline of these like closures? Like how long the street will be? Is it through remediation only?
No, we can give you the phasing, but a lot of this is through the end of construction.
Okay.
Because as the building goes up, there starts to be overhead protection and additional constraints. To the extent that we can give something back, I'm all for it. I just don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. I'd rather surprise you with something you'd be happier with.
Appreciate the honesty.
Okay, great, thanks. I think we're gonna move on. So Zachary, you're up next. Thanks for your.
Yeah, not a problem. Thanks everyone for your time. And I guess just to keep it quick and ask again and again, if there's any way to, with your daily reports, release the schedule for trucks leaving. It's you like going out or you see parents walking with their kids right as the trucks are going. I know there's all sorts of water and we're being told they're super safe, but I've been doing research into other sites and it seems like a lot of the contamination that comes off can often come off of trucks that just aren't completely cleaned or aren't completely sealed. And given the fact that it impacts kids so greatly, the specific chemicals at the site, having some sort of schedule, letting people know, hey, maybe, I realize the trucks don't go by the playground, but just letting people know, hey, maybe close your windows from 2 to 4 today. I don't know. I don't know how much your crew is able to negotiate those types of things. At the end of the day, it's maybe minimally protective, but it might actually be protective, and it seems like a small ask.
So Zach, I hear you. I'm just trying to sort of wrap my head around the ask. Let's just talk through what goes on the site, and then we could see. So typical days, right, where we're not pouring concrete, if we're, let's say we're loading soil.
Yeah, that's mostly what I'm talking about, is removing contaminated soil.
So there's, let's say 30 trucks in the morning, and then they do a second round, so it's 30 trucks, afternoon time. Each of those trucks, when they enter the site, if they're removing soil that's in the tent, there's an airlock. They sort of back into the tent. They're loaded with an excavator, right? And then there is a DEC approved, required, mandated enclosure on top of that. And we have our third party, Haley Aldrich, James is sitting next to me, and we have 3 or 4 site personnel that basically confirm that cover on each truck is properly sealed. Then before the truck leaves the site, it enters like a truck wash station, more or less, where we have laborers that basically power wash all the wheels and the sides of the truck to make sure no debris or remnants leave the site. So when that truck is leaving, basically it has been like approved or signed off that the tarp is properly enclosed and properly washed. So I understand from your concern, maybe the volume that there's, truck after truck after truck leaving the site. But when that truck hits that road, there should be no contamination or contaminants that should be dangerous to anybody around it.
I hear you. I mean, I've
Or, you know, so
and I fully appreciate that these things are happening. I can guarantee I've photographic evidence, at least from a few weeks ago, of a truck that wasn't fully sealed. And that's like, I get it. I'm just saying, is not releasing a schedule or being like, hey, our trucks are going to be on the road with contaminants.
So we could talk about, there was two separate things, right? So that was just
Yeah.
addressing the trucks, leaving the schedule. Now we can talk about schedule. There's two sort of waves or volumes of trucks at this stage of construction. So it's the soil removal, which we discussed, and the concrete pours. Those are the two big waves. So the concrete pours, I know for our first pour, we gave everyone a heads up in the daily report. We gave everyone a heads up about sort of the volume, number of trucks, and hours. And when you're pouring a volume of concrete, you know, like those trucks, it goes for, it could be 6 to 8 to 9, it could be 12-hour days. The 12-hour days aren't necessarily always pouring. That includes all the prep, the actual pouring, and the finishing. So
yeah, I'm not worried about the concrete pours. I'm mostly talking about the.
I hear you, but we heard other commentary when we did our.
Gotcha.
First pour,
I hear you.
so
Okay.
I want to hit both.
Absolutely.
So for soil removal, it's really day by day. Like what we push our construction manager to do is give us a forecast of the week. And we go to the trucking and disposal contractor and we say, hey, we're gonna need 60 loads, 4 days. So it's 60 by 4. But if there's weather or there's a site condition that delays it, it may not be perfect. So what I can commit to is we can give you our best guesstimate at the beginning of the week. But if something goes wrong, it's going to be very challenging to be a daily update on why we didn't do 40 trucks or why it may be the next day. So that's.
I can totally appreciate that.
Okay. So we can.
I realize life happens. I just
So we can generally
just
give you a forecast of what we expect, generally how many trucks we expect to leave the site that week. I am not, this moves day to day and changes a lot within a week, but we can try it, and I'm happy to, see if that helps you.
Appreciate it.
Great. Laura, you're up next.
Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, I'm going to be a little less kind because I think the whole thing from start to finish, this meeting is disgusting. I heard Darren being, basically silenced for, just trying to find out how how we could, slow down a project that's being having a devastating effect on the community. I mean, this is a big deal. People here are already sick. All right, I'm already sick. My kids are already sick. The day that I emailed you guys about the cluster of trucks on my corner and about the dust and everything else that was going on was the same day that I found out yet again another one of my kids has a birth defect and a severe condition, and every one of them are environmentally linked. Here today, forget about that part, then move on to the meeting where Scarlett starts talking about, you should go to your doctor. Well, it's not as easy as that too. There's a politics in hospitals too. They are not going to, and I've been through this 1,000 times with each and every one of my kids and myself. A doctor is not going to tell you that that you have a hereditary condition or an environmental condition unless they've got numbers and proof sitting right on their desk. It doesn't work that way. So that's misinforming the people on this call. What you were asked about was a health survey, and as Daphne and I were talking about on the side here in the chat. This is a big deal now to find out from people what they're experiencing as far as health effects go. This was the failure of the New York State of Health and the DEC and every other health agency years ago, and you're still failing. You're still ignoring people telling you that there are problems now. I heard 3 people on this call say that they have express that there's issues, health effects going on right now. And it doesn't matter if that's what DEC is allowing as far as regulation, or what the Department of Health is allowing as far as regulation, because the people in this community have been barking for years that the regulations are flawed. They're flawed. When are our elected officials and the agencies that we rely on going to acknowledge that and start making those changes? And when are people like this developer going to realize what bad situation that they stepped into? All right, I think it's disgusting. And I think it's a disgusting way that we're getting treated. Thank you for hearing us, but that's like saying thank you for answering the phone and not hanging up. All right. Other than that, I don't see anything else happening. Nothing protected of this community. That's all I have to say.
Thanks, Laura. Does anyone want to respond to that? Or I also see Deborah has her hand raised.
I mean, I can respond to some of them. If someone has experienced a health effect, be it related to the site, be it not related to the site, I still would strongly encourage them to see their doctor, because their doctor is going to know their personal history best and can evaluate them best. We're not doctors that work in Bureau of Environmental Exposure Investigation. We're specialists that look at contamination.
I go to doctors at least 3 or 4 times a month. I have 4 autoimmune diseases, and I get screened for the cancer that I had. Among all the other doctor visits that I escort my children on. So yeah, I'm already aware of that. What I'm not aware of is what the agency is actually doing to find out what's going on right now as this project is going forth. And if the answer is nothing, right, then you're failing, period.
So
I guess. Well, I just want to step in, Laura, for just a second. I mean, the answer is not that we're not doing anything. As you know, we have regulations. We can only work within the law and regulations that we have. I appreciate your concern about that you don't feel that they are strong enough or that they don't go far enough. I hear you. I've heard that from a lot of different communities, and they're concerned about it. Look, we can work within the bounds that we're given. We have these community air monitoring and all of these bells and whistles that we put on these remedial action work plans for a reason. Our goal is to not have any of the contamination get out of the site for people to become exposed to it. That's what we can do within the parameters that we're given. And I think that what we have is as robust as can be expected under the conditions that we're working under. I know your concern. I know I've spoken with you many times about the concerns you have about the long-term health impacts. That's, there's a lot that we can do. There's a lot that we can't do under what we have right now. We're doing the best we can. We really think we have a very, very robust remedy here. And we have a lot of protections in place to protect the community. What I can't tell you is this contamination's been under the ground for 50 years. I can't tell you what happened 49 years ago. I cannot look back in my magic 8-ball and see what happened. What I can tell you is we have the absolute state of the art, everything that can be done, that every engineering control, every institutional control that we can is put on this site. So I'm going to step back and just, that's the only thing I can give you, Laura. I know it's not enough. I know you're get frustrated with this, but that's where we are right now.
Deborah or Daphne, if either of you are wanting to speak to this issue, go ahead.
Yes, good evening, everyone. So as a resident, I just definitely agree with Ms. Laura. I've come across 2 residents where I live at directly across the street from this issue, and they have been having back and forth going to the hospital for a number of reasons. They're breathing, a lot of stuff that they didn't have before they got here to Greenpoint. But not only that, as a parent, as a former school teacher, our children that are coming in here, and just the overall dynamics, nothing is 100%. We know this. I get it. You guys have a job to do, but we have to live in this community. So I don't know. Is it airtight? I don't think so. Is it going to be filled and filled again? Yes, it will. Will people occupy that space? Oh yeah, they will, because absolutely, you guys definitely gonna get paid. But where does it leave us? Like, this is not fair. It's not fair for those coming in who don't know this issue, even though, you know, there's a number of us online that do spread the word on different avenues and different places, but this is so unfair to us. And I'm just saying, as a resident, something has to be done better in order to keep our residents and our children safe, because forget about, I mean, even though I've lived, but what about those kids that's coming up now? And that's all I have to say. I'm also very unhappy with this whole situation. I come out my house every day and I put my mask on regardless. But, you know, when I see the open, you know, areas and stuff like that, and I'm thinking, wow, do people know? Do they really care? And most of the people that cares are the ones that's on here. The ones who don't know, that's another issue. I'm just saying that, you know, something needs to be done, and something needs to be done, you know, in regards to where we live at and the people that live in this community. And it's just so unfair for those that's moving and going to be actually living on that part of the land and you know, just the overall community.
So that's actually why we do this. You know, we do this, we work together with you know, responsible parties who work together with volunteers, who work together with participants in different programs to clean up these sites. And the reason is for, you know, the people in the community are, you know, the people in New York here, to make sure that this contamination gets removed, gets taken out of the neighborhood so it no longer can be a problem. You know, whether there's current exposures or not current exposures, if it's removed, if it's addressed, if it's taken out, it's no longer a concern for exposure for future you know, for the kids, for residents that are there.
But is anything, what I'm saying to you, I get that, but nothing is 100%, right? Nothing. There's no guarantee. There's no guarantee. But in the meantime, just you know, making the folks aware that this thing did exist there, because of course you're getting ready to build a building there where people are going to reside. You know, whether or not, I mean, who says it's all gone, right? And I get it. You took the majority out because nothing in this world is 100% done, or it's, you know, or it's taken care of. But we the one that have to live here. You guys go back home to wherever you live at. And I think that's more importantly what's of concern of us. Then we have to deal with the backlash of what's taking place and what's gotten out or what's not. And, you know, that's all. I'm just like, you know, at this point, I mean, it's already done. There's nothing that we can do other than express ourselves and how we feel. And yeah, I'm not totally blaming you guys, because listen, the city, you know, it makes its money on what it's doing, but in the process, you know, lives are being affected by it, and it's just disgusting.
So I mean, I will say that one of the requirements when the remedy is done too is to collect samples to see what is left behind after. You know, is there any contamination that remains, so that it can be, you know, can be addressed and it can be managed. So that is a requirement of that as well. Just because I don't know if everybody knows that it's not just, okay, we're going to do this and we're going to assume it's going to work. No, we actually have follow-up that's required to make sure that the remedy is effective. And that's needed before, you know, the agencies sign off that the remedy is complete and that it actually met the requirements that are put forth in the decision document, put forth in the remedial action work plan. So there are, it's something that we kind of like stay with, you know, we don't just say, okay, we're going to do this and we think it's going to work. Okay, we're good, we're gone. It's not like that. We stay with it. If it's 30 years, if it's 100 years, you know, we are around to see what was achieved by the remedy, what contamination remains. Did the remedy actually meet what it needed to? Is there additional action that's needed? It's not like a one and done kind of deal. You know, we got to make sure that whatever it is that needed to get done does get done. So, I mean, I hope that helps a little bit, but also, you know, feel free to give us a call too. We can talk about it in more detail. You know, you have, I think I talked to you last time, or maybe it was at one of the other meetings. Give me a call. You know, we can talk about all the specific concerns, you know. We want to be available to, you know, give you the information that you need.
Thank you.
So I'm aware that we have just 3 minutes left. So Daphna.
Yeah, I'll make it really quick. It's a very practical follow-up question for Scarlett Messier-McLaughlin.
Sure.
It's not just cancer that we should be looking at, but asthma.
Mhm.
Okay, so that means I just want us not waiting until people are sick, because that means you're looking at hospital records, means you're waiting till we're sick. Sometimes, yes, if you go to the doctor, they say, I don't know, it's environmental. That's literally, I've had 3 or 4 doctors say things like that to me because they don't know. Wait, it's just, the thing is that there have been surveys in the past for asthma in Greenpoint, in Harlem, that led to changes. So I'm not asking for a big survey. How about just a very simple survey to find out who is experiencing respiratory problems in the immediate area of the site? Because some of us are.
So,
and I think that gives you a chance to not only double check that you're doing everything right, the way Jane is saying, making sure all the bases are covered and you got the state of the art, but there could be something that's happening anyway. And if we don't check with people, then we'll find out later. And why should we do it later if we can just find out how many people are having problems? If it's not a lot of people, then maybe it's just something else.
Right.
I think that we treat Greenpoint like, oh, we all have so many health problems because Greenpoint has been screwed up for years, but that doesn't mean there's nothing going on right now. Okay, so I don't want to feel like we're just crying wolf.
Right.
An informal survey would be enough to make us happy right now.
Yeah, well, before Scarlett jumps in on that, Daphne, I want to point out one thing. Scarlett sort of touched on this in one of her earlier responses regarding cancer and, like, you know, the latency period and maybe somebody might have been exposed to something and then moved into this location. One of the things that's going on here is, and someone else mentioned it, there's a lot of development going on in Greenpoint. Not all of it is being done you know, as under DEC oversight, right? There's other construction excavation activities happening. There's other sources of dust. There was, you know, so we, you know, and I'll let Scarlett step in here, but it's very hard to pinpoint where an exposure is coming from. So that's part of it.
Not when my bedroom is facing the site.
Yeah, but
your
your bedroom faces west, right?
No. I face north.
You're on the south side
of the street facing north. My bedroom.
You're on the south side of DuPont.
Yeah.
Okay, and then right on the other side of the site, there is Greenpoint Landing, where there's other development and construction going on.
There's other things. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But let's say, okay, so you're saying that if it's
I'm
not
just saying,
part of
like,
this, no, then DEC isn't the only person that's concerned. We're concerned. We don't only think it has to be your agency or the Department of Health, but we are asking for help.
Understood.
And we don't, and if it can't come from one place, then there needs to be some kind of oversight. We just need to not feel like, well, okay, it's somebody else's job or we don't have to do it. Because I think it would be really simple. And so, you know, I was going to reach out to Lael. It's like, maybe that's something we can just do informally, because maybe it's not an issue. But I know people who have done surveys of asthma in Harlem with mapping. You know, I know it can be done. So
it's not something the Bureau of Environmental Exposure does. I will say.
I know.
If you send me an email,
I will.
put you in touch with the, with the right people, and they can respond to that. I mean, Jane's right. There are a lot of different construction projects, and the ones that have DEC and DOH oversight, if it's a site in a remedial program, we have specific requirements for community air monitoring that goes on. So we know, that the work that they're doing there is not going to have contamination that's going to migrate off the site in the air and cause exposures associated with it. But at the same time, we have our own, regulations. I know that, people have concerns about, are those regulations sufficient? Is there still some sort of exposure? I mean, there's a lot of different
There's
concerns there.
five things going on right here. So yeah, each one of them by themselves is not doing anything. But when you have that many, the Department of Buildings allowed all of that to happen at the same time.
Yeah. So I mean, that's the kind of
And
question that if you send me that email, you say, this is what I want, I can forward that on to, people in other parts of the health department and see what they can do. It's not something we do in our not in our agency, but in our bureau. But, I can get the right people in touch to see if there's, if they can be responsive to your request.
And so how do we get your email address?
Oh, I'm sorry.
You want to put it in the chat, Scott?
Yeah, let me put it in the chat.
Yeah.
I can share.
Oh, great. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So here are a list of some of the email contact information of people that we've been talking to. They've shared their information previously. We have this up on our website, and I can link it as well, but you can see that Scarlett's email is there. Unfortunately, we're going to have to wrap up for tonight, but I think there's a lot of ongoing questions, and all of this relates to the amount of development, not just, this site in particular, but obviously this is one of particular concern. Obviously talking about what's going to be cleaned up and some things that are under the street and what falls under the purview of this particular cleanup, but we'll have to get into all of that at next meetings. I'll send out an email with the presentation from today. We've recorded this meeting, so you can share it with people who weren't able to come. But I want to thank everybody for being here, for asking insightful questions, for continuing to hold people accountable, and to, everyone for responding and being at the table. So thank you everyone for being here, and have a good night.